Hey, welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio at CES 2023 with me, James Kotecki, and my guest, Andrew Wallenstein, who is Variety Intelligence Platform's president and chief media analyst. Obviously, this is part of the Variety empire. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Good to be here with you.
Andrew, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you were once the co-editor-in-chief of Variety itself. So tell me about your current role, what appeals to you about this, and how it differs from things you've done in the past.
Sure, well, so Variety Intelligence Platform has been around now for a few years. It's basically a subscription extension to that core Variety business where people who come to the Variety.com website who are interested in digging deeper beyond the headlines, really into the issues that matter most to those in the media business, get a really deep mix of analysis and data like you really can't get anywhere else. And we touch on a lot of the issues that people are here at CES talking about.
And so how long has Variety Intelligence Platform existed?
We're going to go into our third year in 2023. We started exactly when the pandemic began, and we've weathered that storm. And
congratulations!
Thank you.
Hopefully, I'm not going to say on the other side of it, but hopefully on the other side of it. And so this is not unlike maybe other kind of news businesses and newsrooms that have added that kind of plus element or that subscription element. Political newsrooms, for example, will have subscription-based services where you can, when the deputy secretary of whatever sneezes, you can get an alert about it on your phone for those people who need to know. So this is kind of like that idea, but for your industry.
Yeah.
Okay. And how's it going? What are you learning about how this kind of business, what have you learned throughout the pandemic and now in terms of how this business is operating?
Well, you know, what we focus on, obviously CES is very broad in technology. What Variety Intelligence Platform and Variety itself focuses on is the media business, content, particularly in terms of how it intersects with the technology business. And this is a time of profound change, profound anxiety, frankly, because especially given the economic backdrop right now, it's a tough business to be in, no matter what piece of it that you are in. And so the changes, the adaptation, the forced innovation, all of that across film, streaming, TV, music, publishing, that's what Variety Intelligence is about.
I feel like there's so much that we could dig into, but from you, what are you most curious about or interested in among all those different changes that are happening? What are some of the things maybe for your readers that are really top of mind right now?
Well, you know, I think the streaming business is really where the attention's been now for several years. Netflix has found itself surrounded by a fleet of competitors, and the competition there is fascinating. I think the big question going into 2023 is, will the same number of market entrants still be standing by the time we get to 2024, particularly given that this business is getting harder, it's getting more expensive, it's just brutally competitive, and I, for one, don't think that's the same set of companies that began several years ago are going to be standing after another year this difficult.
I won't hold your feet to the fire, but are you willing to name any names of businesses that you think are existing right now that may not exist in the same form at the end of the year?
I'm not going to single out one, but I'm going to say I think there's a clear sort of second rung of streaming players, whether it's Paramount, whether it's Peacock, the NBC Universal streaming services. I just don't see how they're going to be able to compete at the level of, say, Netflix, Disney Plus. HBO Max is going to be at a critical year as they merge with Discovery. I think we're going to see a lot of this kind of, not necessarily merger activity, but partnerships, bundling. I think that's going to happen big in 23.
The addition of ad-based tiers to platforms like Netflix is obviously happening. What's the sentiment in the industry around that? Is it, this is a last-ditch effort to try and figure this out? Is there a lot of confidence or hope going into it? What's the feeling around that?
It really is one of the big questions in streaming right now, because it was unthinkable just a few short years ago that Netflix, for instance, would be in this business, but they've kind of gotten dragged there by the fact that so many others, including Disney, are playing in that world. I think the thing that's going to be most interesting, particularly for Netflix, is will this new influx of subscribers cannibalize the existing subscriber base? Will we see people who are paying, say, I don't know, $14 for whatever the core Netflix product is, trade down several dollars and accept some advertising? That's not necessarily a loss for Netflix. They could start to make a lot of money on the ad sales side. But I think it's going to take a while. The early going has been tough. And I think it's going to be a learning process for all the companies in this space.
We've seen different streaming platforms removing content, canceling different shows that were happening, and certain fans get upset about that. But how does all of this shape up from the business perspective in terms of how it influences the kinds of content that gets greenlit, that stays on the site, that gets renewed for different seasons, or even the way that people think about creating content in the first place if it's going to be ad-supported?
Well, I would point to the fact that in recent years, we have seen this incredible surge in the sheer volume of content out there. As you know, it's been called sort of the peak TV phenomenon. At Variety Intelligence, we've actually put out a lot of data showing just like, I think at this point, like it's across scripted and unscripted, we're really approaching about 2,000 different shows being in circulation. And I think this is the year we start to see a ceiling get hit and that the number will start to come down as all these services get a little more discerning, as they get a little more careful with how they spend their dollars. You look at a company like Netflix, they still say they're going to be spending like $17 billion, but I think how that money gets spread around will probably over a fewer set of shows that they want to bet on. Because also a lot of these services are getting a lot of data and they're seeing with a really granular sense of what is working and what isn't, and that's going to inform further choices.
Staying on Netflix for a moment, we saw Netflix put a film like Glass Onion in movie theaters just for a little bit of time, maybe to get some interest, and then obviously mostly it's streaming. So as we're talking about the rise of these streaming platforms and their increasing dominance in our lives, what's the role of the movie theater business? What's your intelligence platform telling you?
Well, what we have studied at VIP, as we call it, is how movies are going to be impacted. Clearly in 2022, we saw that the movie business is certainly reduced from where it was, say, 2019 pre-pandemic, despite the fact you've got humongous movies like Avatar, Top Gun. As successful as those big movies are, the sheer volume of movies is nowhere near what it used to be. 23 will be an interesting test because we'll see the volume come back up. But I got to tell you, as we look at the numbers, I don't think the movie business is ever going to go back to what it once was. I think we are seeing, not its eradication, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's going to get smaller and smaller, particularly with regard to the theatrical business. I think the sheer volume of theaters in the US and worldwide is going to start to come down a bit. And I think it's going to be a reflection of the fact that a lot of movies are going to find their home on streaming. Because really, I think you're going to see that just the biggest blockbusters and maybe horror and some other few genres that play particularly well will keep a reduced footprint of the theater business open, but otherwise, I think it's going to be a different mix.
And those movies you mentioned that might still be successful in theaters, it seems to be based on the experience of the audience needing to have that big screen or wanting to have that big screen experience for a giant movie like Avatar or Top Gun. For a horror movie, I guess the experience is being with other people and hearing those screams.
Exactly.
But for a thought-provoking indie film, maybe there's less, maybe it sounds like what you're saying, maybe it just makes less sense for that to ever be in a theater. Yeah,
we're seeing that right now, by the way. The awards season is upon us. Lots of movies that are gunning for Oscar nominations, and kind of the indie movies, art house movies that you're talking about, box office has not been pretty. And I think it's a reflection of exactly what you're talking about.
So much we could talk about here. I want to see, do you have a prediction for your industry that maybe others don't agree with, that seems maybe a little bit crazy, but you think could actually happen in the next few years?
Well, another thing that we've focused on this year at VIP in a big way was the metaverse, which is, of course, everyone's been talking about in a big way. I think I am not as bearish as I think most people are in terms of how Meta and Mark Zuckerberg, who's betting pretty much the future of the company on the metaverse. I'm very bearish in the short term about how the billions and billions that they and other players are sinking into that business is going to pan out. But I think it's not crazy in the long term. When I say long, I mean like 5 to 10 years at the very least. That we do see the pieces of the metaverse puzzle come together. I think when you look at even the virtual reality business, which has been rough going, it's certainly nothing that's kind of at the precipice of like major expansion. I still think when I see how teen audiences are playing with that equipment, that over time, and a lot of the evolution and innovation, and yes, a lot of failure, we're going to get to a place eventually where it's going to work.
And what would be the tipping point? Is there a specific thing that would happen or that you would see in your data that would make you say, okay, the metaverse has arrived?
Well, look, the metaverse is certainly broader than just the entertainment business. I think you're going to see more targeted applications work, say, in education or otherwise, that will probably bring the metaverse awareness up a bit. For the entertainment slice of the metaverse, I think it's going to be akin to what has always been the case of media, which is a medium doesn't truly arrive until there's a hit piece of content that raises awareness. And so I think we may see the equivalent of, and this is a very loose metaphor, and just the way I Love Lucy sort of broke television big in the 1950s, who's to say we won't see some sort of equivalent experience develop in the metaverse? I mean, you could argue that what Fortnite has done with content may be the very thing that I'm talking about. But in terms of what Mark Zuckerberg wants the metaverse to be, immersive, three-dimensional, I think we're a ways away from seeing the true killer app that will help that.
Well, Andrew Wallenstein, Variety Intelligence Platform, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Anytime.
And thank you so much for sharing your eyeballs with us today and your time and attention. This is the C-Space Studio. We are at CES 2023. I'm James Kotecki, and more conversations are just ahead. Stay with us. I'm James Kotecki. You're live, very live, in the C-Space studio here at CES 2023. And with us is a returning guest to the C-Space studio. Welcome back, Lizzie Woodhelm, SVP of B2B Marketing and Ad Innovation at SiriusXM Media. Thanks for rejoining us.
So good to see you.
A few things have happened since we last talked. But I want to start, as I usually do, with having people define their brands. SiriusXM, people are probably familiar with the brand on some level, but what's the overall statement of what the brand means in 2023?
Well, last time I was here with Pandora.
That's right.
And SiriusXM acquired Pandora. So we are a house of audio brands, the biggest in the business, obviously SiriusXM, best in satellite. Pandora SoundCloud, best in streaming. And since I saw you last, we acquired Stitcher, which is the leading brand in podcasting. So we have the largest podcast network in the United States and in Canada. So, our mission is to deliver the best in audio to our customers and to deliver access to those customers for our advertisers. But I'd say the newest mission, which is fun for me and a stretch as a marketer, is to engage the audio creator and the audio storyteller and help them come into this ecosystem. Podcasters are new to this.
Yeah.
Some big time celebrities like Kevin Hart, some people you've never heard of that have these, great shows that are growing. So it's the wild world of audio.
And so when you're engaging audio creators, what tips or advice are you actually giving them? Are you advising them on how to monetize, how to read an ad, how to engage their audience in a way that seems natural?
Everything. Some of them, the OGs of podcasting, have been doing this for many years, and they understand their voice, and they're very specific with how they're going to engage with their customer, their community, right, their audience. And so sometimes it's taking their lead. It's their show. It's their audience. It's their, authentic connection. And I can't, like in music, just interrupt every 6 songs. So when it comes to monetization, we have to take an approach that's a little bit more thoughtful, but at the same time, educating them on what advertisers need, which is measurability, scalability, something that is at least hopefully a little effortless to buy. So we're an enabler in that conversation.
What's the hardest thing to teach people how to do?
Let go of their norms on both sides. Creators feeling a very specific way about how brands are going to fit in their show. And advertisers having a lot of rules around how their brand should show up. Because at the end of the day, the person they both care about most is the audience. So they're mutually aligned in who they want to benefit. Yet sometimes, that's the challenge, is to help them get there.
Can you give me an example of where that works well?
Well, it works well when we come at it from a place of the listener. We study all of our listeners. We just announced a female podcast listener report. We've done a Black podcast listener report, which we're going to refresh. And so I come to it from a place of data. Here is what the audiences want. Here is where the audiences are. Podcasting is growing around women, young people, multicultural audiences. So I'm just there to act as an educator and then hopefully to take some of those best practices. We've been at audio I've been in it for 17 years. We've been an expert in how to do audio ad tech, how to insert ads in ways that make sense, how to delight the listener. So I just come from a place of data and driven experience. And it's different every time with each creator.
That's absolutely true. I'm not sure if this question is going to make sense, but is the definition of podcasting itself changing? I mean, technically what it is, it's audio delivered in a certain format. I suppose that's not changing, but is what it means to have a podcast or listen to a podcast changing? We think of this individual experience that most people have, putting on their headphones and listening to it solo, maybe in their car, maybe with one other person. Is anything changing about that?
100%. Everything's changing, and here's why.
I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, I am glad you asked. The ubiquitous opportunity to touch and reach listeners via audio is great. We saw huge changes during COVID. Obviously, we're here at CES, all these connected devices. Everybody has a speaker and earbud in their ear. So there's a huge opportunity if you're a content creator, whether you're a TikToker, whether you're NBC, who has a show like Dateline, to extend your content offering through audio. But everyone comes at it with a different approach. Scripted, that would be like a Dateline example. Tinks, who we found on TikTok and brought her into audio, she started as a social media influencer, and we're teaching her how to be an audio influencer and an audio storyteller. She has a SiriusXM show, she has a podcast with us, and then all the way to like an Ashley Flowers, who is the #1 podcaster in the world. She started in podcasting. She's the queen of true crime. So they're all coming at it from different vantage points, but they each see one thing, which is the value of leveraging audio to gain all of this time spent with their audience, which ultimately benefits their business.
When we think about traditional host-read advertising, that's kind of a long-standing part of what it means to have a podcast, or can mean. But obviously ad tech in this space is significantly evolving. So what's the latest on ad tech here as far as how you're using it and using that to integrate ads into shows?
Yeah, and we've been invested in ad tech for a very long time. We've homegrown and built our proprietary ad tech stack from the ground up. So we understand very deeply how hard it is to get audio right. When it comes to podcasting, we've had to get really smart about targeting.
Yeah.
You know, the music space and before privacy and identity challenges that are now very prevalent in our industry today, the ability to leverage first party, third party, and really understand who these audiences were in a walled garden, like in the example of Pandora, which is where I was here 3 years ago now, wow, talking about it. You know, that's not where we're at today. We're in a distributed world. We're having to build ad tech that can understand wherever the listener is. And then we're having to build new models and new frameworks to understand identity. And it's really coming through AI and transcription targeting. So we're reading every single show that comes in with AI. We're understanding how to tag these shows. And then we have to build the ad tech and the insertion logic to go at those contextually relevant topics. You know, the challenge with podcast ad tech is you have to sell something before you've heard it.
Yes.
Right? Like I'm selling a show that I haven't even heard the episode yet. So the speed with which you have to transcribe a show, take that metadata, put it in your data warehouse so that you can effectively target ads based on what our advertisers want is a huge challenge. This isn't just gonna, you know, accidentally happen. We're really investing in that area and we're very far ahead of the curve there in terms of our competitive set. And it's another example of how we're leading.
And it involves a lot of trust from the advertiser to you, from the advertiser to the hosts and creators of the show, that the kind of thing that they've heard before that makes them want to advertise on that show, or that makes the AI recognize what the show is going to be somewhat consistent. Do you feel like when creators work with you on this, is that a challenge for them to kind of make sure that they stay consistent in a way that creates that level of brand trust?
No, I mean, we 100% don't have anything unsafe across our network. So no hate speech, nothing that an advertiser wouldn't want to associate with. Now, finding those contextually relevant moments where the creative's going to make sense, that's what we're helping to do. But we really tell the creators, like, you do you. It's your show. They tend to stay in and around the same subjects, right? So relationships or sports or news, or Conan O'Brien is a big partner of ours, and we bought Team Coco recently. And so we love comedy, and we think there's a huge space for comedy. But yeah, understanding all the different targeting elements that have to be there for the specific brand safety that each brand is going for, that is our job. And we don't think that's the creator's job. We just want them to talk to their audience and continue to grow. And then, you know, what's cool about that though is like advertisers think they want to be in a show, and we can say, actually there's 6 other shows that are after that same audience that you would love. And then over time we get them used to some of these shows, they see performance, then we can do really cool custom stuff, right? We can do events with creators, we can do custom episodes. So there's more space to be creative, more so than in music actually, which is what is really where the fun starts.
We're talking about using AI to read these episodes and insert ads. Are you planning on a future where you're using AI to actually create these ads? We've seen in the last year explosion of technologies indicating, okay, maybe AI isn't there yet to fully create this stuff, but it's going to continue to enable people, and we're going to continue to see a progression there as far as visuals, but also in terms of writing, in terms of audio with kind of voices that you can replicate with AI. Are you planning on that future?
We're there. We're already there. So we've been doing a lot of testing using everything from ChatGPT to synthetic voice. I did a little experiment about, I guess it was 3 or 4 weeks ago when ChatGPT was making, you know, a lot of buzz. Was that right before Christmas, like the first week of December? And I took an audio brief that we were working on, that we were having an internal copywriter and some creatives build ads for. Put it into the chat AI, produced a bunch of copy, and then we have an experiment happening internally because we have an innovation lab within our engineering team, and we have a set of synthetic voices that can then take that copy and record an ad. I was able to go from audio brief to a finished ad in 90 seconds.
And could people tell the difference? Could listeners?
I mean, you know, no, I don't think you could, but it wouldn't be the end all be all. It would be a part of a strategy.
Yeah.
Right? And I think there's a lot of work we can do around multiple different voices,
Right.
leveraging the technology to spit out different variables based on audience. So give me copy for a teenager, give me copy for a mom, give me
Sure.
copy against the same audio
Hyper-specialized and
brief.
focused,
But the technology's there. Now it's just integrating something like, you know, ChatGPT into our world, and then having our teams figure out how could that be self-serve. And that's a lot of our focus, and we think where there's continued growth for new advertisers coming into podcasting. I mean, we haven't talked about that, but we need a lot more diversification of ads and brands in the podcast ecosystem, so we're not hearing the same offers over and over again.
Right. I love stamps.com, but you know, you got
You've had enough. No more awareness needed.
So actually, I don't want to slam any brands on this show necessarily, but I do want to ask you, from your personal perspective as a podcaster, we've been talking about this from your perspective in the business, but you also have a podcast. Can you tell us a bit about that and what that's been like for you to do that yourself?
I do. You know, I've been in this business for a long time, and I love audio, and I wanted a creative outlet. So a girlfriend of mine from high school, we're the same age, but have two very different lives. She is single, living in the Bay Area, working in venture capital. We know what I do, and I'm a mom of three. I didn't mention that, and been married for 20 years.
Congratulations.
And so we have a show called Lady Space, and I get to bring a totally different version of myself to that show. That it's not that I couldn't bring that to work. You know, SiriusXM is a very safe space to work, and you can bring your whole self. But me giving ideas about, we just had an episode where we tackled like how to get a raise and how you should go about a review with your boss and all the mistakes that young people make. And we rant. I mean, we freewheel quite a bit. And we have an amazing community, mostly of women, although I run into men now and they're like, I love your show, it teaches me so much about my wife. But it's a different version of me, and I think that's beautiful that I can do that, and I love it, and we have a really strong listener base. So it was something we started as a pet project, and not that I'm quitting my job anytime soon, but it's doing really well.
Well, congratulations on that. Lady
Thank you.
Space, wherever fine podcasts are
Yeah,
available.
you can find it everywhere.
I assume. Well, Lizzie Woodhelm from SiriusXM, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
at
awesome to
C-Space.
see you again.
Yes,
We'll do
it's
it
been-
next year.
It's been great to have you back. Please do come back.
I mean, it's been a 3-year gap, but
It's-
I've done a lot, so I better get
It's been a
really
long time.
back to work this
2023
year.
is going to be a big year. We're going to have a lot to talk about next
Okay,
year.
done.
And we have more to talk about with you, so please keep it right here. Thanks for watching. This is the C-Space Studio. I'm your host, James Kotecki, here at CES 2023. We will be right back. Hey, welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio with me, James Kotecki, here at CES 2023. And joining us is Yusuf Chukwu, who is of NBC Universal. And I'm going to read your title, the Executive Vice President, Client Strategy and Insights. And I'm sure you've got a lot of great insights for us right now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What is the scope of your role at NBC Universal? How do you define what you do to someone you just met?
By spending about 2 hours trying to explain it. But very simply, I run two teams, a team called Client Strategy and a team called Insights and Research. Together they are 55, 56 strategists, researchers, data scientists, analysts, all of whom are really just focused on ensuring that our clients that advertise with us kind of have effective advertising. It's as simple as that.
So what are some data points and trends that stand out to you at the beginning of 2023?
Oh gosh, well I think 2023 is going to be interesting in terms of where things are going. I'm really excited about in-game advertising.
Yeah.
I think that is I don't want to say it's going to be big because that just makes me seem like some kind of like pop culture person. But I do think that in terms of finding engaged audiences, a lot of it still remains kind of untapped. There's still so much opportunity. So I still feel that that's going to be huge. I think we're seeing it already, but advertising in streaming across different streaming platforms is going to continue to increase. And so yeah, it's going to be interesting.
What's the gaming play for NBC Universal? So I think of NBC, the channels, the television channels. I think of movies. I think of theme parks with Universal. I think about Peacock, the streaming service that you have. But what's the gaming play?
There's going to be some news coming, so I'm not going to sort of preempt some of that.
We love exclusives here at the C-Space studio.
I certainly won't be doing that yet. But it's probably the best way to think about it is you have NBC Universal, but also you have NBC Universal advertising and partnerships. And so what we do as a team is we sell across numerous platforms. And so if you think about wherever our content appears, whether that be on social platforms, on YouTube, Twitter, like the opportunity for you to attach advertising to it via NBCU One platform is kind of where we sit. And so in-game advertising will be yet another opportunity that we are offering to our advertisers.
Can we talk about Peacock for a little bit?
Sure.
The streaming service that, I don't know, was it a couple years ago that it actually launched? That, I believe, has had an ad-supported tier from the beginning.
Yeah.
Now we see other streaming services starting to add ad-supported tiers. What lessons have you learned? I mean, I don't want you to give everything away to your competitors, but in general, what have you learned throughout this process in terms of what advertising has done?
I think it's probably the advertising gets a bad rap. Like people will tell you that people don't like advertising. There was
not here in the C-Space studio.
Exactly. Well, I tell you a story. A number of years ago, when my daughter was a little younger, a friend of hers found out I worked in advertising, and what she said to my daughter was, "Oh, advertising, isn't that what poor people watch?" And that's a horribly precocious thing to say for a child. But what she was getting at is she lived in a world where she was able to pay to not see it. And so the idea that lots of people are willing to pay to not see advertising was a belief that I think the industry held on to for a while, and it drove kind of the launch of various platforms. I think what we have discovered is that, and I guess the dirty secret is that people love brands and they like advertising when advertising is done well. What we have tried to do at NBC Universal with Peacock is create an advertising environment that is right, and so you ensure that you create pods that don't have many ads. You kind of create these sort of prime pods that allow us kind of like 1 or 2 ads that just mean that actually the people can engage in it and get straight to the content. You ensure that you are providing premium content that creates high emotional engagement, and that becomes a great place for advertising. So there are sort of, I guess, simple things that we've kind of known as an industry, we just forget sometimes, and that's really what's been the secret of success.
Does it come down to the creative side as well? I mean, I can rattle off probably 10 amazing commercials that still stick with me today. If I think about Nike commercials or Apple commercials, some that I'll literally go to YouTube and just like search for the commercial. So it's clearly possible for this stuff to tug on our heartstrings. But how do you think about the creative side of this?
It's interesting as an industry, like once a year when the Super Bowl comes, we suddenly decide that actually we should make engaging, entertaining advertising. And then what happens is a whole load of people are probably even more engaged in the ad break than they are the football.
Right.
And then it finishes, and then we forget. And then we go back to how we used to be. I think, Phil, actually one thing that was told to me when I first started in the industry by another senior creative, and he was like, Yusuf, consumers invite us into their homes every evening. And so what we should be is great guests. And a great guest is warm, they'll tell you great stories, they'll entertain and engage you. And so like the best advertising does that. And when you do, people welcome you into their lives.
And being a part of NBC Universal must have its advantages there, because obviously there's a storytelling DNA as part of the organization.
Oh, absolutely. I spent my entire career over a quarter of a century background. I used to work in advertising as a creative strategist in advertising agencies, and so spent a lot of my time talking to clients around how we can help them kind of impact culture, how we can find a place for them within popular culture, and that how they kind of needed to tell stories that were culturally relevant. Fast forward to now, I sit in an organization that does that every single minute of every single day. And so I am learning from probably the greatest storytellers in the industry on how to attract an audience. And it's some of those learnings that we're passing on to clients.
It strikes me that in a world of many people cutting the cord and living an on-demand lifestyle of only selecting the content that they would already want to watch, or that the algorithm has really predetermined for them to watch, advertising may be some of the only content that I didn't explicitly choose to watch. So in certain situations, is there kind of this element, you're kind of alluding to this element of almost mission, where in certain situations there are messages or ideas that maybe would actually be good for people and improve their lives. They would never seek it out, they would never see it any other way, and advertising actually is the only way to communicate that.
Yes, there's, I'm not going to, it's probably a bad example in terms of the content, but it helps understand where advertising came from. If you think of, there were a thing called medicine shows, like hundreds of years ago, and traveling snake oil salesmen would enter a town, and they would literally put on a show.
We're talking about like the covered wagon.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Doctor medicine.
Yeah. And for these towns that people didn't visit very often, suddenly to have this entertainer in town, they would draw an audience, and then once they had that engaged audience, they would sell whatever they were selling. That is advertising from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but the kind of the lessons kind of remain today. And so as long as we are, and I've said it before, but I kind of say it a million times, as long as we are engaging, entertaining and informative, like people will listen and take on the messaging that they need.
What else inspires you beyond your industry to innovate and to do what you do?
I moved into a new building downtown Manhattan last year, and I was getting out of the elevator, and I bumped into basically a childhood hero. His name is Mark Gonzalez. He lives in my building. He's a skater, and he's credited as being kind of the father of modern day street skating. And so what he and a whole generation of early street skaters did is, when they looked at their built environment, when they looked at a set of stairs or a wall or a handrail, they saw something that they could do tricks on. Like other people walked on it, they would jump over it, they would grind it, whatever it is. But it was how they worked with what was not a skate park. This was a limited street environment, but yet somehow they turned it into a playground. There's an Orson Welles quote that I'll probably butcher now, because I'm now trying to remember it. But I think, he said the enemy of art is the absence of limitations. And so what he meant by that is that we need constraints
Yes.
in order to innovate.
Shakespeare wrote sonnets within a very particular framework.
Exactly, right? And so what's interesting for me and where I draw inspiration is that actually the constraints that maybe we sometimes think of as kind of these limitations, the things that get in the way of creativity and innovation, it's like, well, no, actually embrace that, because that's actually where the innovation is going to come from.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface in this conversation, and I really appreciate you coming, and I'm sorry we can't keep going, but we hope to have you back here in the C-Space studio. Yusuf Chukwu, NBC Universal. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching. I'm James Kotecki here in the C-Space studio at CES 2023. More conversations are just ahead. Stay with us. Hey, you're back with me in the C-Space studio. I am James Kotecki here at CES 2023, and we're talking with Bob Ohlweiler, who's the SVP of Sales and Marketing at Razer. Welcome to C-Space Studio.
Thanks so much, James. It's great to be here.
It's great to talk to you again. We talked on the CES Tech Talk podcast about the gear, the video gaming aspects that Razer's going to be bringing to CES 2023. Now CES 2023 is here, so what have you got?
Oh my God. So we have like new innovation. So we've already racked up 3 awards.
Congratulations.
And it's been fantastic. Probably a couple of the highlights, if I may.
Sure.
We completely upgraded our laptop line, our Razer Blade laptop line. Our Razer Blades are all CNC aluminum, carved out of a solid chunk of aluminum. They have the best components on the market. And we kind of came up with some new form factors. So we have a 14, a 15, a 16, and an 18 now. We've got rid of our 17. The 18 is more screen than you can imagine.
Talking about 18 inches.
18-inch laptop. And we've got the latest Intel processors, which they announced. And these things are screaming fast. They're power miserly, and they're super fast. And the one that we have in the booth is a 4080 NVIDIA graphics, which a 4090 graphics, which hasn't really been in a gaming laptop of that size before. So that's really cool. We've also had some other great things like some of our concept products, what we always do. We have a gaming chair with speakers built in, which is great, and we have a bunch of other stuff I guess we could talk about as we go, but it's really been fantastic.
I really want to get into some of this. For those who are watching who are maybe not hardcore gamers, Razer is obviously making products for serious gamers. Can you explain to folks, you're talking about the latest advancements in laptops, for example, can you explain to folks what the difference is playing a game, and you choose the game for this example, on one of your latest pieces of equipment versus just some laptop that I might have lying around in my house?
Oh, absolutely. So a couple things, right? Number one is your GPU renders all the graphics.
Yep.
And with the graphics cards that we have in our laptops now, you set all your graphics at the maximum detail. So when you first see the imagery on the screen, like say any game. What do I play? I play a lot of Overwatch. The details are just incredible. The refresh rates, we put the best displays in our laptops, so the refresh rates are really important. We have 240 hertz refresh rates, 360 hertz on HD, and on the 240 in quad, 2K definition, you can see every detail, and it's buttery movement. So if someone's coming around the corner and you're taking a shot and you're at the 240 hertz, you're gonna see them before the other player sees you because their screen's painting at 60 hertz, and you've got a competitive advantage right there. And so it's just the buttery movement, the crispness, and the speed. And if you have a really big screen, I mean, these GPUs will run 2 8K, multiple 8K displays, and so it's just amazing. Then you can take this thing up, fold it, take it to Starbucks, and write a term paper on it. So it's portable.
Who has time to write term papers when there's so many amazing games to play?
I know.
I don't know. ChatGPT is going to write all our term papers for us. Yeah. More time for gaming in the future, I guess. So what has been your kind of brand goal coming into CES? I think of Razer as like one of those quintessential CES companies. CES obviously covers so many different industries, but video gaming, the latest gear, the latest laptops is like so core to what CES is.
Yeah.
How do you stand out in an environment like that as a brand person?
I think it's 2 things, right? So one is launching great products. So the new laptop line I just talked about, we'll probably talk about the speaker. We have a handheld gaming console called the Razer Edge. So launching a bunch of amazing breakthrough products that everybody covets, that's number one. But the other thing we always do is we always launch our vision of the future. And we have such confidence and an intimate relationship with our gamers that they know us, we communicate, we have the biggest community in gaming. And so we're very open to showing them our concepts. And some of our concepts, we fall flat on our face. But we're standing true to who we are, and we're showing you who we are, and we make a mistake sometimes, but some of our concepts just become instant products, very similar. But some of our concepts, they bake a while.
Yeah.
And they bake into amazing products that are very different down the road. Like we had this thing called Switchblade, which was a really cool interface years ago. And we never did the product, but a little bit later we started putting Switchblade interface on a keyboard. And so people could look at their Facebook and do other things while they're working and they're gaming. And now that technology has turned into Streambox, streaming box, so you can control your lighting, you can control your microphones and everything while you're streaming.
Yeah.
And so these are things that come out of our vision for the future, and we're not afraid of showing our vision for the future. And I think that's really one of the reasons why people love to come to the Razer booth.
A lot of talk here in the C-Space studio about the metaverse. Obviously, it sounds like a lot of the gear that you're doing will be put towards potentially some of those visions of the future and some of the ways that those visions actually come to pass. When we talk about some of the experimental stuff that you're doing, VR, haptics, ways that we're going to interact virtually, what are some of the things that you're showcasing this year?
So what we've started to do is we've started to dangle some new products in the VR space. There's a lot of great VR headset folks out there. What we're showing at our booth is some of the things that we do really well. Like, when we made the Black Shark V2 headset, it's super light. The materials are amazing. They could sit on your head all night long in gaming. So we've taken a lot of that.
That's really important
learning.
because these things can get heavy and awkward, and you don't want to wear it for too long.
And it's all about stamina. It's all about giving our gamers a competitive advantage, which that headset did, and it's been one of the best-selling headsets in the market. But that whole knowledge and technology, we took and we've created some. We've created a holder for a VR that fits on your head perfectly, and we've worked with some partners to create some other materials that will give you like 2x or 3x the comfort with VR. And we've got a lot of other stuff obviously coming, which we never talk about.
The theme of CES this year, as you know, is human security for all, and this is a wide range of topics: food security, climate security, health security, environmental security. How does Razer see itself fitting into that theme?
Razer is passionately dedicated to sustainability, and a couple of things. Number one, we have a venture fund, and the focus of the venture fund is investing in small companies that are in anything sustainability. There's this one company that created a robot boat that goes around the Pacific and cleans up plastics, stuff like that. We've also done a bunch of stuff with recycling. All of our Razer offices, we don't use plastics or papers. Everything. We have commercial dishwashers, and we do all that. We have our products are now moving towards. We've committed to zero carbon emission by 2025, and we continue to launch new products that meet climate standards. On Amazon today, you can see 5 new products that we just announced that all have climate stickers on them, and we continue to make this one of our top executive and corporate goals, along with profit and revenue and people.
And I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't know the number, but what percentage of a laptop is recyclable? Like we talk about e-waste, like if we send that back to you guys, can you make a new laptop with most of the parts? How does that work?
Almost all of it's recyclable, yeah. And for years, a lot of the really nasty stuff has been pulled out, and it costs more to make it without some of the nasty stuff. But yeah, there's whole industries around recycling laptops. So laptops, I mean, our laptops are carved out of a block of aluminum. The chassis, you just throw it and melt it and make beer cans.
Well, we're going to have one hopefully a little bit later
hopefully,
here at CES. If CES is all about collaboration, it's all about meeting different people and having different conversations. If Razer could collaborate with another company here at CES, do you have anyone in mind?
Oh boy, I was thinking about how advanced our mice are, our keyboards, our switches, and all of our technology. And I spent a few years when I graduated, I spent a little bit of time in the military. And I'd really love to collaborate with like Boeing or Lockheed and use some of our technology and our sensors to help drive drones and do some stuff. And you know, one of our guys who used to be a Marine Corps pilot, he picked up our new PlayStation, our Wolverine V2 for PlayStation 5 wireless controller, and he said, "This is better than what I had in my Cobra." So it's. I would love to do something like that if we could.
And what an interesting, maybe kind of full circle element that is, right? So you have video games that are, you know, you make war games and shooters, and you're trying to kind of simulate that experience. And now video games have so much to teach back to the military in terms of the gear and in terms of the operations.
Well, I have friends in the Air Force who say that when they bring kids on now to run those drones and stuff, if they have video game experience, they figure this stuff out like that. But you know, but really. A lot of people who don't game don't understand the technology that goes into a simple thing like a mouse. But you know, making sure the mouse can read multiple surfaces, and you know, if you're trying to scroll across, a gaming mouse, if you lift it up, it'll stop registering. So otherwise, you can scroll quickly across. Our gaming keyboards, if you press keys at the same time, it sends them all to the operating system. All of these little things make gaming more enjoyable and give you a competitive advantage. And so when I talk to friends and stuff, and I can go on and on all night about it.
Well, it's great to talk to you once again here in the C-Space studio. Thanks for joining us, Bob. Really
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's so good to see everybody.
It's great to be back in person. Bob Ohlweiler of Razer. And that's it for today at the C-Space studio. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm your host, James Kotecki. We're here at CES 2022, but we are not done yet. I said that's it for today, but tomorrow, Friday, we'll be starting up again at 9 a.m. Pacific time with a whole bunch more live conversations about media, marketing, branding, the metaverse, and so much more. So I hope you join us, and I think you will. I'm James Kotecki. We'll see you soon.